Ma'am, would you like another refill on your water? I looked up, startled. The waiter was hovering over me, his face a mix of pity and impatience. I glanced at the empty chair opposite me, then at the expensive watch Mark had bought me for my birthday last year. It was 9:45 p.m. No, thank you, I said, forcing a smile that felt tight on my face. My husband should be here any minute. He's just very busy at the firm. The waiter shifted his weight. Of course. It's just that the kitchen closes in 15 minutes. If you wanted to order appetizers, he'll be here, I insisted, my fingers tightening around the small velvet box in my lap. Inside were cufflinks. Pure silver, engraved with our initials. Just give us 5 more minutes, as you wish. He walked away, taking the water pitcher with him. I stared at the candle in the center of the table. The flame was drowning in its own melted wax, struggling to stay lit, just like my hope. Pick up the phone, Mark, please, I texted him again. I'm at the table, everyone is looking at me. Are you close? 3 dots appeared. My heart jumped. Finally, the phone buzzed. I snatched it up, desperate for an apology, for a reason. Mark, crisis at the office. Big merger files missing. Can't leave. Go home, Elena. Don't wait up. I read it twice. No, happy anniversary. No, I love you. Just a command. Go home. I felt my throat close up. I typed back, my fingers shaking. It's our 5th anniversary, Mark. I've been waiting for 2 hours. The response was instant. Mark, stop being dramatic. I'm working so we can live this life. Go. Home. The screen went black. I sat there frozen. The humiliation washed over me hot and fast. The couple at the next table was whispering, looking at the lone woman in the fancy dress with the untouched table settings. Ma'am. The waiter was back. I stood up, grabbing my purse. I'm leaving. Put the water on my tab. There's no charge for water, ma'am. Right. I walked out of the dining room, keeping my head down. I felt small. I felt stupid. I had spent 3 hours getting ready, curling my hair, picking the dress he said he liked. For what? To be dismissed via text message. I pushed through the heavy oak doors and stepped out onto the street. It had started to rain. Of course it had. I shivered, hugging my arms around my chest, scanning the street for a taxi. That's when I saw it. The silver Porsche, Mark's Porsche. It was parked directly across the street under the glow of a street lamp. My breath hitched. He came, I thought, relief flooding my chest. He told me to go home, but he surprised me. He's here. I took a step off the curb, ready to run to him. Mark, I whispered, a smile breaking through my misery. But then the interior light of the car flickered on. He wasn't alone. Mark was in the driver's seat, but he wasn't looking at the restaurant. He was leaning over the center console. In the passenger seat sat a woman. She had bright blonde hair that tumbled over the headrest. She was laughing, her head thrown back, her hand resting intimately on Mark's neck. I froze. The rain soaked into my dress, plastering the silk to my skin, but I couldn't move. No, I breathed. Please, no. I watched as Mark reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. It was a gentle, tender gesture, the kind he used to do for me years ago. Then he leaned in. They kissed. It wasn't a quick peck. It was deep, passionate. The kind of kiss that says, I want you more than anything. The velvet box in my hand felt heavy, like a stone. Inside were cufflinks for a man who wasn't at the office. He wasn't working. He was 50 feet away, cheating on me on the night we swore to love each other forever. I didn't scream. I didn't run over and bang on the window. A hard, cold knot formed in my stomach, replacing the heartbreak with something sharper. Something quiet. I turned around, walked down the block, and hailed a cab. I didn't look back. I unlocked the door, my hand shaking so badly the keys jingled like wind chimes against the wood. The house was warm, smelling of vanilla my candles. But the atmosphere was wrong. It felt heavy, suffocating. I stepped into the living room, water dripping from my dress onto the hardwood. They were waiting for me. Mark sat on the leather sofa, a tumbler of scotch in his hand. Beside him, perched on the armrest like a decorative bird, was the blonde woman from the car. You're home early, Mark said. He didn't look up from his glass. I saw you, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Outside the restaurant. In the car. The woman shifted, crossing her legs. She wore red stilettos that dug into the leather. I told you we should have been more careful, babe. she purred, her voice dripping with mock concern. Mark finally looked at me. His eyes were empty. No panic. No guilt, just annoyance. Well, that saves me a speech. Elena, this is Chloe. Chloe, I repeated, the name tasting like ash. You brought her into our house? It's going to be our house soon, Chloe said, smoothing her skirt. She looked around the room, critiquing the curtains. Though the decor definitely needs an update. It's a bit drab. I looked at Mark, waiting for him to defend me, to defend us. She's right, Elena, Mark said calmly, taking a sip of his drink. We're in love, real love. Not whatever comfortable roommate arrangement we've had for the last 2 years. You're just holding me back. Holding you back? I felt the room spin. I worked 2 jobs while you finished your MBA. I paid the down payment on this house. And I pay the mortgage now, he cut in sharply. Look, let's be adults about this. I want a divorce. You want a divorce? I laughed, a jagged, hysterical sound. Fine, get out of my house. Mark set his glass down on the coaster with a deliberate clink. No, you're leaving tonight. Excuse me? I've already spoken to the lawyers. The house is in my name, Elena. You signed the quitclaim deed when we refinanced, remember? The memory hit me like a physical blow. He had told me it was for tax purposes. I had trusted him blindly. You tricked me, I whispered. I protected my assets, he corrected coldly. Speaking of which, don't bother checking the joint savings. I moved the funds this morning. Consider it severance. You emptied our account? My knees buckled. That was my inheritance money. That was for our future, Mark interrupted. And my future is with Chloe now. Chloe stood up and walked over to me. Up close, she smelled like expensive perfume and ozone. She reached into her purse and pulled out a travel pack of tissues. Here, sweetie, she said, pressing them into my wet hand. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Don't smudge your mascara. It's really not a good look on you. I slapped her hand away. The tissues fell to the floor. Don't touch me, I snarled. Feisty, Mark muttered, checking his watch. Go pack a bag, Elena. I want you gone before we go to bed. The words severed the last thread of denial holding me together. I turned and ran up the stairs, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. In the bedroom, our bedroom, I grabbed my old suitcase from the closet. I didn't fold anything. I threw clothes in blindly. Jeans, sweaters, underwear. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely work the zipper. I didn't take the pictures. I didn't take the jewelry he gave me. I just wanted out. I wanted to breathe. I dragged the suitcase down the stairs 10 minutes later, the wheels thumping a heavy, mournful rhythm. Mark and Chloe were already clinking glasses in a toast. I walked to the door, my hand gripping the handle until my knuckles turned white. Elena and Mark called out. I stopped, but I didn't turn around. Don't make this messy, he said, his voice dropping to that cold, businesslike tone I used to admire. You have no money. You have no house. You can't afford a fight. I opened the door and stepped out into the night. The rain had stopped, leaving the air cold and still. Watch me, I whispered to the empty street. But deep down, as I dragged my life behind me on wobbly wheels, the terror set in. He was right. I had absolutely nothing. My hip was grinding against the hardwood floor. Somewhere in the middle of the night, the air mattress had lost its battle with gravity, deflating until I was essentially sleeping on a plastic sheet. Elena, you have to get up. I pulled the blanket over my head. Go away. It's been 3 days. Sarah's voice came from above me. You smell like despair and stale crackers. I have to go to work and you need to shower. I can't. My phone buzzed against the floorboards. It had been vibrating nonstop since I arrived. I knew it wasn't Mark. He was likely too busy picking out new curtains with Chloe. It was his mother again. I reached a trembling hand out and grabbed the phone. The screen was bright, burning my tired eyes. Very unbecoming, Elena, I let out a dry, hacking laugh. Sarah crouched down, ripping the blanket off my face. Stop reading them, she ordered. A wife's duty is to forgive. Men have needs. If you had tried harder to keep yourself attractive, he wouldn't have wandered. Sarah looked up, her face twisting in disgust. Is she serious? He cheated, Elena. Maybe IWSN single quotes T.fun. Mrs. Higgins. Go back and apologize. Beg him to take you back before you embarrass the family further. Apologize? Sarah yelled, her voice echoing in the small apartment. Give me that. I'm telling her where she can shove her family values. No, I snatched the phone back, clutching it to my chest. I need to see it. I need to feel it. You need to eat, Sarah said, standing up and marching to the kitchenette. I made toast. Eat it. I'm not hungry. I feel sick. Sarah slammed a plate down on the counter. The noise made me flinch. She walked back over, grabbed my arm, and yanked. Ouch, Sarah, stop. No, get up. She didn't let go. She dragged me, stumbling and weak, across the room and shoved me into the bathroom. She flipped the light switch and pointed at the mirror. Look at yourself. I shielded my eyes from the harsh bulb, but she grabbed my chin and forced my head up. Look, Elena. I looked. The woman in the glass was gray. Her hair was a matted bird's nest. Her eyes were hollow, sunken deep into a skull that looked too fragile to hold them. I looked like a ghost. Sarah demanded, standing behind me. Is this who Mark gets to leave behind? I saw the burden Mark described. They get to say you were crazy, that you were weak. I felt a spark in my chest. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was hot. It was rage. No, I whispered. What? No, I said louder. I turned the faucet on full blast. I grabbed a rough towel and scrubbed my face until it was red and raw. I turned to Sarah. She was watching me, arms crossed, a small, proud smile playing on her lips. I'm not going back, I said, my voice steady for the first time in 72 hours. And I'm not apologizing. Good, Sarah nodded. What's the plan? I looked back at the mirror, staring down my own reflection. The hollow look was gone, replaced by a cold determination. I need a job, I said. And I need a lawyer. One who eats sharks like Mark for breakfast. The office smelled like a mixture of stale coffee and paper that had been sitting in a damp basement for a decade. A fan rattled in the corner, trying and failing to move the stagnant air. He cleared the accounts? He called it severance. Mr. Vance let out a short, dry chuckle. He didn't look like a savior. He wore a suit that was a size too big and a tie with a mustard stain near the bottom. He made me sign a quitclaim deed 2 years ago, for tax purposes. Vance peered at me over the rim of his glasses. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, and completely devoid of sympathy. And you signed it. I trusted him, I whispered, looking down at my hands. He was my husband. Rule number 1, Vance said, tapping a pen against the desk. In this room, he isn't your husband. He's the opposition, and right now the opposition is winning. He has the assets, the house, and the expensive blonde. I flinched. I know. You don't have money for a retainer, do you? No, I admitted, my face heating up. I have. $200 in cash and a credit card he hasn't canceled yet. Vance sighed, rubbing his temples. I'm not a charity case, I said, my voice rising. I helped him build his career. I managed our finances until he took control last year. There has to be money he didn't declare. Mark is arrogant, but he's sloppy when he thinks he's untouchable. Vance stopped tapping his pen. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. He plays dirty, Elena. He's already emptied the war chest before the war even started. Do you have the stomach to fight back? Most people fold. They take the quick settlement and run. I thought about Mark's cold, dead eyes as he told me I was holding him back. I thought about the air mattress. Something hot flared in my chest. It wasn't the panic I had felt for days. It was resolve. I don't want a quick settlement, I said, staring straight into his eyes. I want what is mine. Vance held my gaze for a long moment. Then, slowly, the corner of his mouth twitched upward. All right, he said. He pulled a yellow legal pad toward him. Here's the plan. He's expecting you to sign the divorce papers immediately because you're desperate. We don't sign. We don't? We delay the proceedings. We claim emotional distress. We ask for extensions on financial disclosures. We buy time. Time for what? Time for you to get a job so you can pay me, he said bluntly. And time for us to find where he buried the bodies. If he's arrogant like you said, he made a mistake. We just have to find it. He pushed a contract across the desk. Sign here. I'll take the credit card for the filing fees. The rest, we'll get from him later. I picked up the pen. My hand wasn't shaking anymore. I signed my name in heavy, dark ink. Welcome to the fight, Elena, Vance said. I walked out of that dusty office and into the bright afternoon sun. The air felt different. I wasn't just a discarded wife sleeping on a floor anymore. I was a plaintiff. And I was coming for him. You have a 5-year gap in your employment history. I sat across from the metal desk, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to hide the tremor. The office was industrial, smelling of diesel fumes and strong coffee. The man behind the desk, Liam, didn't look like a typical boss. He had rolled up sleeves, a messy tie, and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in a week. I was managing my household, I said, keeping my voice steady. I handled finances, scheduling, and event planning. Liam looked up from my resume, his expression flat. We move freight here, Elena. It's loud, it's fast, and people yell. It's not a dinner party. I don't need a dinner party, I said, leaning forward slightly. I need a paycheck. And I promise you, no one will work harder. He studied me for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then he tossed my resume onto a pile. It's entry level, the pay is garbage. You start now. Thank you, I breathed out, relief washing over me. Don't thank me yet. Go find Jessica. She manages the admin floor. I walked out to the open plan office. It was chaotic. Phones were ringing and people were shouting across dividers. I found the desk marked senior admin. A woman with sharp eyeliner and a sharper jawline looked up. Can I help you? She asked, not bothering to hide her annoyance. I'm Elena. Liam just hired me. Jessica laughed, a short, sharp sound. Another one? Okay, Elena, since you're the new help, you can handle the backlog. She stood up and pointed to a table in the corner. It was covered, literally buried in mismatched invoices, shipping manifests, and crinkled receipts. The digital system crashed last week, Jessica said, a cruel glint in her eyes. Liam needs all of those sorted, categorized by region, and manually entered into the backup spreadsheets by tomorrow morning. I looked at the mountain of paper. It was impossible. All of it? If you want to keep the job, she said, popping a piece of gum into her mouth. Most people quit by lunch. No hard feelings if you walk out now. I thought of the empty bank account. Jessica blinked, surprised. Suit yourself? By 6 p.m., the office had cleared out. By 9 p.m., the cleaning crew was vacuuming around my feet. My eyes burned and my fingers cramped from typing, but I didn't stop. I created a system. I cross-referenced dates. I built a color-coded spreadsheet. You can't do this, Elena, a voice in my head that sounded like Mark whispered. You're just a housewife. Shut up, I muttered to the empty room, stapling a stack of invoices with aggressive force. At 1 a.m., I typed the final entry. I slept for 4 hours in my car before washing my face in the office bathroom and sitting back at my desk at 7:55 a.m. Liam walked in at 8 a.m. sharp. He stopped at Jessica's desk. He looked at the neat stacks. He looked at the open spreadsheet on her monitor. Jessica, Liam barked, did you finally finish the backlog? Jessica stammered, holding her coffee cup. Well, actually double quote. I did it, I said, standing up from my cubicle. Liam turned slowly. He looked at me, then back at the work. He walked over to my desk, scrolling through the spreadsheet. He checked the formulas. He checked the sorting. He looked at me, his face unreadable. You did this in one night? Yes. You missed a comma in row 42, he said gruffly. My heart sank. Then he looked me in the eye. But the rest is perfect. Not bad. He walked into his office and slammed the door. Not bad, I repeated to myself. I sat back down. Do not drop those, Elena. The crystal inside cost more than my first car. I've got them, Liam, I huffed, adjusting my grip on the 3 stacked silver boxes. But remind me why the logistics manager is doing the CEO's personal shopping? Because you have good taste. And because I trust you not to steal them, Liam replied, walking a few paces ahead of me, checking his phone. I need to take this call. Meet me by the fountain in 5 minutes. Got it. I navigated through the polished marble halls of the Galleria. It was the kind of mall where the air smelled like expensive perfume and the security guards wore suits. I felt out of place in my simple gray skirt suit and sensible flats, juggling boxes like a pack mule. I turned the corner toward the fountain and froze. There, standing in front of the massive glass display of a jewelry store, were 2 people I'd hoped to never see again. She was pointing at a diamond ring in the window, squealing something I couldn't hear. He looked happy, prosperous. I tried to pivot, to duck behind a mannequin, but the top box in my stack wobbled. I lunged to catch it, and my shoulder bumped into a metal sign stand. Clang. Mark turned around instantly. His eyes narrowed, then widened in recognition. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face. Well, well, he said, loud enough for passersby to turn their heads. Look who we have here. Chloe turned, her eyes scanning me up and down. She covered her mouth, giggling. Oh my God. Is that Elena? I stood straight, clutching the boxes to my chest like a shield. Hello, Mark, Chloe. Mark walked over, his hands in his pockets, looking at my load. Shopping? Oh no. You're holding... Are those deliveries? I'm working, I said tightly. Excuse me, I have to go. God, Elena, it's been, 2 months? I didn't think you'd fall this far, this fast. It's an honest job, I muttered, my face burning. It's pathetic, Chloe chimed in, stepping up beside him. She flashed a massive diamond on her finger, not the one in the window, but one she already owned. Babe, didn't you say she had a degree? And she's hauling boxes? I told you, she's useless without me, Mark said, his voice dripping with condescension. I carried her for years. The moment I let go, splat. I felt tears pricking my eyes. The shame was hot and suffocating. I wanted to drop the boxes and run. I wanted to scream. But I just stood there, paralyzed by their mockery. You look tired, Elena, Mark continued, stepping closer, invading my space. Maybe if you ask nicely, I can write you a check. For old time's sake, I hate seeing strays suffer. She doesn't need your money. The voice was deep, calm, and dangerous. Mark blinked, looking behind me. Liam was standing there. He wasn't looking at his phone anymore. He was looking at Mark with a gaze that could peel paint. Who are you? Mark asked, straightening his blazer, trying to regain his composure. Liam stepped up beside me. He didn't take the boxes. Instead, he placed a warm hand on my shoulder. It wasn't possessive. It was protective, grounding. I'm her boss, Liam said, his voice even. And you're in my way. Her boss? Mark scoffed, glancing at Liam's slightly rumpled shirt. Right, well, tell your employee to watch where she's going. She nearly dropped your whatever that is. These are gifts for our top investors, Liam said coolly. And Elena isn't a delivery girl, she's my operations manager. Mark's eyebrows shot up. Operations manager, her? She runs my entire logistics division, Liam lied smoothly, or maybe he wasn't lying. I didn't know anymore. Elena is my most valuable asset. She's smart, she's resilient, and unlike you, she understands the concept of loyalty. Mark's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked from Liam to me, confused by the shift in power. Chloe looked annoyed, tugging on Mark's arm. Come on, Mark, let's go, she hissed, eyeing Liam warily. Yeah, Mark stammered, stepping back. We were just leaving. Good choice, Liam said. As they hurried away, disappearing into the crowd, my heart pounded against my ribs. I looked up at Liam. You didn't have to do that, I whispered. Liam finally took the boxes from my hands. I didn't do it for you. I hate bullies. And for the record, you are valuable. Don't let a cheap suit like him tell you otherwise. Thank you, I said, my voice steady. Let's go, he grunted, walking toward the exit. We have work to do. I followed him, my chin lifted high. Mark's laughter had stung, but Liam's defense had healed something deep inside. I wasn't useless, I was valuable. And for the first time, I actually believed it. My phone vibrated against the break room table, buzzing so hard it rattled my coffee cup. It was Mr. Vance. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for bad news. Usually when lawyers called, it was to tell you that you were losing money or time. Hello, I answered, stepping into the hallway for privacy. Elena, are you sitting down? Vance's voice sounded different. It lacked his usual tired, gravelly tone. He sounded awake, maybe even excited. I'm standing, what's wrong? Quite the opposite, Vance said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Mark didn't just hide assets, Elena. He practically drew us a map to them. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. What do you mean? Remember how he said he drained the joint savings for business investments? Vance asked. Well, he did. He moved $200,000 into a shell company called Apex Ventures. He thought he was being clever, hiding it before he filed the divorce papers so it wouldn't show up as marital property. Okay, I said, trying to follow. But if it's hidden, how do we get it back? That's the beauty of it, Vance chuckled, a dry, raspy sound. He paid the registration fee for the shell company using his personal American Express, the one linked to your home address. I found the transaction in the subrecords this morning. He used marital funds to hide marital funds. In the eyes of the court, that's fraud. It's perjury. My heart started to race. What does that mean for me? It means the judge isn't going to just split the assets 50-50, Vance said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. When a spouse hides assets like this, the court gets angry. We can petition for the entire amount plus the house. We have him by the throat, Elena. I leaned against the cool wall, closing my eyes. For months, I had felt helpless. Now, the ground was shifting beneath my feet. I was no longer the victim. I was the one holding the match. He doesn't know you know, I asked. Not yet. I'm drafting the subpoena now. We're going to freeze his accounts by Monday morning. Just then, my phone beeped. A notification slid down from the top of the screen. I pulled the phone away from my ear to look at it. Message from Mark. I stared at the name. He hadn't texted me in weeks, not since the mall encounter. Mark, hey, are you around? Things are chaotic here. Chloe bought a $5K handbag yesterday. Can you believe that? I stared at the screen, blinking. He was complaining to me about his mistress. Another text bubbled up. Mark, I'm tired of takeout. I actually miss your lasagna. The house feels empty without you cooking in it. Can we talk? A laugh bubbled up in my throat, a dry, humorless sound that surprised me. He didn't miss me. He missed the convenience of me. He missed having a wife who cooked, cleaned, and saved money while he played big shot. He was realizing that Chloe was a luxury item he couldn't actually afford. Elena, you still there? Vance asked. I'm here, I said, looking at Mark's pathetic attempt to reel me back in. I took a screenshot of the texts. I opened my chat with Sarah and hit send. No caption needed. She would know exactly what to do with that information. I said, my voice steady and cold as steel. Yeah? Don't just freeze the accounts, I said. Proceed with the audit. I want you to expose everything. Every lie. Every dollar. Music to my ears, Vance replied. I'll file the paperwork within the hour. I hung up the phone and walked back into the break room. I felt warmer than I had in years. The soft landing place Mark was looking for didn't exist anymore. He had burned it down himself. Now he was going to have to live in the ashes. It's gone. The entire shipment is gone. Jessica was practically hyperventilating, clutching the receiver of her desk phone like a lifeline. The entire office had gone silent. I rolled my chair back from my desk. What's gone, Jessica? The Henderson Medical Supplies, she shrieked, her eyes wide with panic. Customs in Hamburg seized it. Liam is on a plane to Chicago. He's going to land, check his email, and fire all of us. Let me see the manifest, I said, standing up. We missed the window. The client needs those supplies by Friday or they cancel the contract. That's $1 million account, Elena. Jessica, I said, stepping into her path and holding out my hand. Give me the file. She blinked, stunned by my tone, and shoved the folder into my chest. Fine. Fix it. Be my guest. I flipped open the folder. I remembered this account. I had filed the digital copies 3 nights ago when I couldn't sleep. My eyes scanned the bottom of the 3rd page. Here, I pointed. They're calculating weight based on the gross tonnage, but the contract specifies net tonnage because of the specialized packaging. It's a standard error for this specific port. So? They won't release it without Liam's signature. No, I said, grabbing her phone. They need the authorization code from the original bonded warehouse, which we have. I dialed the number for the Port Authority in Hamburg. Jessica watched me, her mouth slightly open. Guten Tag, I said, my voice steady. This is Elena from Logistics. Reference number 44 Alpha. You have a hold on our cargo based on a calculation error regarding the packaging weight. Please reference Clause 14, Section B of the International Shipping Rider. There was a pause. I held my breath. Yes, I said, nodding. Exactly. Thank you. Release it immediately. Jessica slumped into her chair. How did you know that? I read the files, I said simply. All of them. 2 days later, Liam returned. He walked straight to my desk, bypassing Jessica entirely. He dropped a heavy file in front of me. Henderson called, he said. They said you saved the timeline. I just corrected a mistake, I replied, typing away. Jessica would have let that container sit there for a week. Liam said, leaning against my desk. You have instincts, Elena. Stop hiding them. Does that mean I get to keep my job? It means you're getting a new one, he said. Operations manager. It comes with an office and a 30% raise. Take it or leave it. I looked up at him, stunned. I'll take it. A week later, I turned the key in the lock of apartment 4B. It was a studio, barely bigger than Mark's walk-in closet, but the afternoon sun flooded the empty space. I sat on the floor eating takeout noodles, listening to the silence. It was my silence. My phone rang. 11:30 p.m. I looked at the screen. Mark. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. Hello? Elena? His voice was thick, slurred. Are you there? I'm here, Mark. What do you want? She's crazy, he mumbled. I heard the clink of glass in the background. Chloe, she threw a vase at me. She doesn't get me. Not like you did. You chose her, Mark. I made a mistake, he whined. You were always so quiet, so good. I miss the quiet. Can I come over? I looked around my empty, peaceful apartment. I remembered the way he used to look at me like I was furniture. No, Mark, I said. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I just felt pity. He sounded small. But I need you, he pleaded. Goodbye, Mark, I said. And for the first time in 10 years, I hung up first. Miss Vance? I looked up from the logistics report, my fingers pausing over the keyboard. I pressed the intercom button. Ex-mother-in-law, Sarah, is she alone? Yes, and she looks upset, I sighed, closing the file. Send her back. A moment later, the glass door to my office swung open. Mrs. Higgins stood there. The woman who used to inspect my baseboards for dust with a white glove looked like she had been dragged through a hedge backward. Her usually pristine coat was unbuttoned, her hair was escaping its strict bun, and her eyes were red-rimmed. Elena, she breathed out, clutching her purse with both hands. Thank God you're here. Mrs. Higgins, I said, remaining seated. I didn't offer her coffee. To what do I owe the pleasure? I'm in the middle of a quarterly review. She rushed forward, ignoring the chair opposite my desk and leaning over the surface. You have to talk to him, Elena. You have to talk to Mark. I don't have to do anything regarding Mark, I said calmly. We communicate through lawyers now. He won't listen to me, she cried, her voice cracking. That woman ... that creature he brought into the house. She's destroying everything. The woman you said was refreshing and high status? Mrs. Higgins flinched. She's a monster. Do you know what she did yesterday? She changed the locks on my son's house. She told me I wasn't welcome to drop by anymore without an appointment. An appointment, Elena? It is her house now, Mrs. Higgins. It's Mark's house, she shrieked. But she's spending his money like water. She bought a convertible last week. A convertible, Mark is stressed. He looks 10 years older. That sounds difficult, I said, my voice void of sympathy. It's a disaster. He's dipping into the company reserves to pay her credit card bills. If he keeps this up, he'll be bankrupt in a year. She reached out, trying to grab my hand, but I pulled it back. He trusts you, Elena. He always did. You were the sensible one. You need to call him. Tell him to get rid of her. Tell him to come to his senses before he loses everything. I stared at her. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Mrs. Higgins, I said slowly. Do you remember what you told me the day after he left me? When I was sleeping on a floor? She blinked, confused. What? You told me that a wife's duty is to overlook a man's flaws. You told me I should have tried harder to be what he wanted. You said his happiness was the priority. I was trying to save your marriage, she stammered. No, you were trying to save your comfort, I corrected. Well, Mark is happy, or at least he has exactly what he wanted. He has the excitement, the youth, the status. You wanted him to be with someone who matched his ambition. Now he is. But she's ruining him. Then let him be ruined, I said coldly. I am not his keeper anymore, Mrs. Higgins, and I'm certainly not his savior. How can you be so cruel? She whispered, tears spilling over. After everything we did for you? Everything you did to me, I corrected. I reached for the phone and dialed the front desk. Sarah, please send security to my office. We have a trespasser. Mrs. Higgins gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. You wouldn't. I have work to do, I said, opening my file again. Goodbye. 2 uniformed guards appeared in the doorway a moment later. Mrs. Higgins looked at them. then at me, her face crumbling in shock. She didn't scream. She just looked defeated. "Come along, ma'am," the guard said gently, taking her elbow. She let them lead her out. As the door clicked shut, silence returned to the room. I waited for the guilt to hit me. I waited for the old urge to fix things, to smooth it over, to be the good girl. But it didn't come. I looked at the empty chair where she had stood. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt nothing. They were just people I used to know. I turned back to my computer and started typing. I had a deadline to meet. "Red is definitely your color," Liam said, offering me his arm as we stepped into the ballroom. The chandeliers overhead were blinding, but for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like hiding in the shadows. "I bought it with my quarterly bonus," I replied, feeling the heavy silk swish against my legs. "It feels better than anything Mark ever bought me." "It looks better too," Liam said with a wink. "I'm going to say hello to the board members. Will you be all right?" "I can handle myself," I smiled. I walked toward the bar, scanning the room. It didn't take long to find them. Mark was standing near a pillar, holding a drink that looked mostly like straight scotch. Chloe was next to him, tapping furiously on her phone, completely ignoring him. She looked bored, he looked exhausted. His suit, usually impeccable, looked slightly rumpled, and the bags under his eyes were visible even from across the room. I ordered a sparkling water. I felt a presence beside me before I heard the voice. "Elena?" I turned slowly. Mark was staring at me, his eyes wide, traveling from my heels up to the neckline of the red dress. "Hello, Mark," I said, my voice cool. "You look incredible," he stammered. "I've never seen that dress." "You wouldn't have," I said, taking a sip of my water. "I paid for it myself." He flinched. He glanced back at Chloe, who hadn't even looked up to see where he went. He stepped closer, invading my personal space. The smell of alcohol on his breath was strong. "I need to talk to you," he hissed, his voice desperate. "We have nothing to talk about. The lawyers handle everything now. Screw the lawyers." Mark snapped, loud enough that the bartender paused, wiping a glass. "Elena, I'm drowning. She's crazy. She spent $10,000 this week. 10,000. I can't sustain this." "That sounds like a problem for you and your new partner," I said, turning to leave. He grabbed my arm. His grip was tight, desperate. "Don't walk away from me," he shouted. The chatter at the nearby table stopped. Heads turned. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then up at his face. "Let go," I said quietly. "I made a mistake." Mark yelled, ignoring the staring crowd. "I admit it, okay? Is that what you want to hear?" "I made a huge mistake. Take me back, Elena. I'll dump her tonight. I'll kick her out right now. Just tell me we can fix this." "Is there a problem here?" A deep, authoritative voice cut through Mark's rant. We both turned. Mr. Sterling, the CEO of Mark's company and the host of the gala, was standing there. His face was thunderous. Mark went pale. He dropped my arm instantly. "Mr. Sterling, sir, No problem. Just a misunderstanding with my ex-wife. Just a domestic dispute. Nothing to worry about." Mr. Sterling didn't look at Mark. He looked at me. "Miss Vance? Is this man bothering you?" I smoothed the fabric of my sleeve where Mark had grabbed me. I looked at Mark, sweating and trembling in his expensive suit. I looked at Chloe, who was now watching with her mouth open. "No problem, Mr. Sterling," I said, my voice carrying clearly over the hushed crowd. My ex-husband was just realizing he bet on the wrong horse. A ripple of nervous laughter went through the onlookers. Mark turned a deep, violent shade of red. Mr. Sterling looked at Mark with pure disappointment. "Compose yourself, Mark, or leave. You are embarrassing the firm." "Yes, sir," Mark whispered, looking at the floor. I didn't wait for an apology. I turned my back on him and walked away, the red silk trailing behind me like a victory flag. I felt lighter than air. "All rise," the bailiff bellowed, his voice bouncing off the high mahogany walls. I stood up, smoothing the fabric of my skirt. Across the aisle, Mark was already standing. He looked confident, almost bored. He leaned over the divider toward me, a smirk playing on his lips. "You really dragged this out, Elena," he whispered loud enough for me to hear. "You know the accounts are empty. You're just racking up legal fees you can't pay. You should have settled." "Focus on your own lawyer, Mark," I said, staring straight ahead at the empty bench. Mr. Vance patted the thick folder on the table in front of us. Let him gloat, he muttered to me. It makes the fall harder. The Honorable Judge Walters took his seat. He looked tired, flipping through the file with a sigh. We are here for the final asset division in the matter of Higgins versus Higgins. Counselor, proceed. Your Honor, as stated in our previous filing, the marital estate is effectively insolvent. My client has significant debts incurred during the failing marriage. We propose a simple dissolution. Each party keeps what is currently in their possession, no alimony. Insolvent? Vance stood up slowly. He didn't look like a high-powered attorney in his rumpled suit, but his eyes were sharp. Your Honor, the defense would like to submit new evidence regarding the plaintiff's financial status. Specifically regarding a shell corporation named Apex Ventures. I heard Mark's breath hitch. He turned to his lawyer, whispering frantically, How did they— Apex Ventures? The judge frowned, taking the paper Vance handed him. I don't see this listed in the mandatory financial disclosure. That is because Mr. Higgins failed to list it, Vance said, his voice projecting clearly to the back of the room. We have obtained bank records showing a transfer of $200,000 from the joint savings account into this entity 3 days before the divorce filing. We also have the incorporation papers paid for with the family credit card. The judge's boredom vanished instantly. He peered over his reading glasses at Mark. Mr. Higgins, is this true? Mark stood up, his legs shaking. Your Honor, that was for a business startup. It's a risky investment. The money is tied up. You swore under oath that the savings were spent on living expenses, the judge said, his voice dangerously low. That is perjury, sir, and it is fraud on this court. I can explain, Mark stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. Save it, the judge snapped. He banged his gavel once, a sharp crack that made Mark flinch. In light of this deliberate concealment, I am deviating from the standard division. The remaining funds in the Apex account are to be transferred to her immediately as punitive damages. Furthermore, Mr. Higgins will pay all legal fees for both parties. All of them? Mark's lawyer hissed, dropping his head in his hands. All of them, the judge confirmed. Court adjourned. The gavel banged a final sound that echoed in my chest. I'll be ruined. I heard a chair scrape violently against the floor behind us. I turned to see Chloe standing up in the back row. Her face was twisted in absolute fury. You told me you were rich, she screamed at him, not caring you heard. You told me the house was ours. Chloe, baby, wait. Mark pleaded, turning toward her with his hands out. I can fix this. Don't call me, we're done. She stormed out of the double doors, her heels clicking angrily on the marble. Mark stood alone in the center of the room. He looked at the judge, who was already leaving, then at his lawyer, who was packing his briefcase with a look of disgust, and finally at me. He walked over to the table, his shoulders slumped, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. Elena, he choked out, tears pooling in his eyes. Please. You can't take the house. Where will I live? I have nothing. I picked up my purse, feeling lighter than I had in years. I looked at Mr. Vance and smiled. Ready to go? Elena? Mark grabbed the edge of the table, his knuckles white. I'm sorry. I love you. Just ... Give me a chance to explain. I stopped. I looked at him one last time. You had a chance, Mark, I said softly. You used it to lie. I walked past him, the sound of my footsteps drowning out his sobbing. I pushed open the heavy wooden doors and stepped into the hallway. Sold, the realtor said, slapping the red sticker across the wooden sign in the front yard. I stood on the sidewalk, looking at the house one last time. It was where I had been a bride, a wife, and then a victim. Now it was just a pile of bricks and memories that didn't belong to me anymore. The realtor asked, handing me the check. I looked at the number on the paper. It was enough to start over. It was enough to be free. Not even a little bit, I smiled. Burn the drapes for me, will you? I got into my car, a new sedan I bought with cash, and drove toward the city. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. You bought a condo where? Sarah choked on my latte, slamming the cup down on the table. 22nd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows. It has a view of the entire skyline. Sarah stared at me, her mouth hanging open. Then she burst out laughing. Elena, 6 months ago you were sleeping on a deflated air mattress in my living room. You smelled like despair and old sweatpants. Hey, I washed those sweatpants, I defended, laughing with her. But yes. It feels like a different lifetime. It is a different life, Sarah said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. You did it, Elle. You really did it. By the way, guess who I saw bagging groceries at the supermart? I raised an eyebrow. Mark? Mark, she confirmed with a wicked grin, living with his mother again. Apparently, nobody wants to hire a finance guy convicted of fraud. I took another sip of tea. I waited for the pang of sadness, or maybe pity. But the tea just tasted like bergamot and honey. I hope he finds peace, I said honestly. Because he certainly gave me mine. You're a better woman than me, Sarah shook her head. I would have thrown a tomato at him. Later that evening, I was organizing the files in my new corner office. The plaque on the door was fresh, the gold buttering shining under the lights. Elena Vance, head of operations. There was a knock on the glass door. Miss Vance? Liam leaned against the frame, loosening his tie. It's 7 o'clock. Even the boss has to go home eventually. Just finishing the quarterly projections, I said, shutting my laptop. Old habits die hard. Liam walked into the room. The dynamic between us had shifted. He wasn't just the terrifying man who hired a desperate woman anymore. He was the man who saw my worth when I couldn't. You don't have to prove anything anymore, Elena, he said softly, stopping in front of my desk. You saved this department. You saved me a lot of headaches. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. I like being useful. You're more than useful, he said. You're essential. He held out his hand. Dinner? And not a working dinner this time. No talking about shipping manifests. I looked at his hand, strong, steady, honest. I'd love that, I said, placing my hand in his. But I'm picking the restaurant. You have terrible taste in wine. Liam laughed, interlacing our fingers. Deal. That night, I stood on the balcony of my new condo. The city lights glittered below me like a sea of diamonds. The wind was cool, whipping my hair around my face. I held a glass of wine, leaning against the railing. I thought about the girl who sat in the rain outside that restaurant, clutching a box of cufflinks for a man who didn't care. She felt so far away now, a ghost. Mark's betrayal had shattered me, yes, but it broke the cage I had built around myself. It forced me to find the steel beneath the skin. I caught my reflection in the sliding glass door. I didn't look hollow anymore. I looked dangerous. I looked happy. I raised my glass to the city. I made it, I whispered.